Hello YouTube and welcome back to another book review from me, your host Logan Albright. Today I'm talking about Brandon Sanderson's The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. But first, I have a few announcements. If you are watching this in real time as it comes out, you should know, and if you are located within the Washington, D.C. area, you should know that's where I live. I have been invited to speak at the Artomatic Festival, Fair, Exhibition of Performing Arts. I'm not really a performing artist, but I got invited to do it anyway. So I will be reading selections from my book, Libertarian Paganism, on one night, and selections from my book, Conform or Be Cast Out, on another night. And I will be there answering questions and signing copies and selling books. If you are interested and would like to meet me, please come and show up. I will be there on Sunday, March 10th at 6 p.m. at the Cabaret Stage, and I will be there on Friday, March 15th at 7 p.m. at the Cabaret Stage. The Artomatic Festival is located at 2100 M Street Northwest. That's M as in machine. I couldn't think of the native phonetic alphabet correct letter there, but it's M Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., 2100. It's going on all this weekend, or for the next several months, I believe. It'll be on for a long time. But I will be there on Sunday the 10th and on Friday the 15th. I will be reading from Libertarian Paganism on the 10th and from Conform or Be Cast Out on the 15th, but both books will be available for purchase and signing and meeting me. So if you're in the area, I hope you'll stop by. That'll be a lot of fun. Now let's get on to the book, The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. Now, my history with Brandon Sanderson, for people who haven't been watching this channel religiously, I like him a lot as a person. I read Elantris, his first novel, I don't know, a few months ago, and I thought it was okay. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was fine. It didn't particularly grab me to want to read more, but I listen to his podcast, Intentionally Blank, every week, and I really like Brandon Sanderson as a human being. I think he seems like a great guy. He's smart, he's funny, he's has good writing advice, he tells great stories, he seems like a genuinely moral and good person, and so I want to like him, and I want to like his books, and so it brings me no pleasure to have to report negatively on his books, but here we are. So let's get into this book. This was part of a secret project that he was working on, which I find really cool. He was basically writing like 5 novels in secret, and then he crowdfunded them through Kickstarter and funded them himself rather than going through a traditional publishing process, which I think is really cool. The traditional publishing process is not super useful or great for authors these days. I don't know if it ever has been. So the fact that he's experimenting and trying to find ways to self-fund, I think is really cool. Of course, if you're Brandon Sanderson, you can easily self-fund in a way that most authors cannot, but it's a nice experimentation with the process and coming up with new ways of doing things. And I think that's cool. This was secret project number 2, and it was released through Kickstarter, and then it was finally released through actual booksellers eventually. And I was excited when I heard about it, because if there's one thing I like, it's wizards. And if there's 2 things I like, it's wizards and medieval England. So I was really excited to read it. And I was disappointed, I have to say, because, not just this, but mainly because there are no wizards in this book, and it is not set in medieval England. So I felt a little bit cheated based on the title of the book, based on what I was excited to read about and what I was expecting to read about and what I did not end up reading about. And perhaps that's my own fault for doing no research before I got it, but I just thought it sounded cool and wanted to try it. The story, basically, it comes from an idea that he had on the Intentionally Blank podcast that he called a bad story idea, which I don't think is a bad story idea, but his idea was to basically have like a company that either does reality shows or contests or some kind of thing where you can basically travel back in time and interfere with history. So his idea was basically have a reality show where different teams of people go back to the Titanic, and one team is trying to sink the Titanic and one team is trying to prevent the Titanic from being sunk, and they compete for entertainment. And that's sort of a time travel reality show thing. I thought that was a cool idea. He didn't do that, but he did something a little bit similar with this book, which is that there's a company that's selling alternate dimensions. The company has identified an infinite number of alternate dimensions, some of which are more similar to Earth than others. And this particular company is selling discount dimensions at low, low prices that have been identified as being roughly similar to our medieval England time period and place. Just through, chance, coincidence, the way those dimensions have developed, they're very, very similar to our own in the period of medieval history. But they're not identical. There's key differences. Now, this is a clever storytelling device on Sanderson's part, because it means he doesn't have to stress out too much about accuracy. Because if the dimension is not actually medieval England, but something similar to medieval England, you can have the characters speaking modern English and be understood without any problem. You can get around a lot of time travel paradoxes, and you can get around having to be super historically accurate. Although he did say he consulted with a medievalist friend of his on this, and that he, is kind of knowledgeable about the medieval history, and so he didn't get anything wrong, he claims. And so the story is about this guy who shows up in one of these dimensions, has lost his memory, doesn't know who he is, and is trying to figure out what's going on. And throughout the book, it's interspersed with selections from this handbook that is basically the guidebook of this company that tells you how to navigate your way through medieval England, or through the dimension similar to medieval England. And they call these dimensional travelers wizards, even though they're not wizards. They're just from the future, so they have knowledge that makes them appear somewhat like wizards. They're also from the future from our own standpoint. I think he comes from like 2085 or something like that. So it's a little bit in the future, and there's some kind of biological advancements that he's made to his body to help him be more effective in various ways. They're like medical nanobots that live inside his bloodstream that help repair damage and do things like that. So the whole thing is him like trying to figure out who he is and then going on a little adventure while he's there. I thought this was boring, personally. I didn't want to be in a dimension that was a little similar to medieval England. I wanted to be in medieval England. I didn't want to read about dimensional travelers. I wanted to read about wizards. It wasn't what I was interested in reading about. I thought the characters were very unlikable. The main character is a real kind of pathetic heel, a kind of low achiever, not a very good guy who has kind of a sordid past that sort of comes out over the course of the book. The other characters I didn't find relatable or interesting or fun or good in any way. They felt kind of generic. And my main problem, I think, with the book is that it didn't have any medieval flavor to it. Like, it really didn't feel like medieval England at all. Like, all the characters basically talk and act as if they're 21st century Americans. The settings felt arbitrary. It could have been set anywhere and it wouldn't have made any difference. I didn't get that sense of like grime and dirt and lived-inness that you would get from the medieval culture. It just felt like tacked on, like, oh, we got to set it somewhere, let's make it medieval England. But it didn't feel authentic to me. It didn't feel like real medieval England. It did, and that's probably because it wasn't. But it just, I don't know, it felt too modern. It felt like this presentism that we see nowadays, where everybody just assumes that everyone in the past was exactly like people are now, and they think the same way and they act the same way, and they don't really try to put themselves in the shoes of people in previous time periods. And, I guess he's not really trying to do this. This is sort of a fun, lighthearted book. It's supposed to be humorous, although the humor didn't really land for me. But I didn't get the sense of a difference in time and place. It felt the same as any other time and place in the book. And that really kind of took me out of it and made me not invested in the story. The plot, such as it is, there's a little like plot going on, but the plot is basically an excuse for the setting and for the plot device of having the dimensional travel and the memory erased. The plot didn't grip me at all. To me, it felt like the kind of plot that your weekly D&D group would have come up with. Your dungeon master would have written it the night before, and you go on a little campaign together, and it's fun, and you guys have a good time because you're friends and you're hanging out and you're being creative within the context of the game. But you wouldn't publish the campaign as a novel because it's just any random DM just came up with it. He's not a professional storyteller or anything. It just wasn't that gripping or compelling. I wasn't invested in it. I didn't really care, and especially because I didn't find the characters likable. There's a lot of sarcasm and winking and eye rolling and stuff like that the characters are doing, which I just don't believe was the way people acted in medieval England. It just didn't ring true to me. And so that sense of inauthenticity really took me out of the book, and I didn't enjoy it for that reason. The thing that I like best about the book were the little snippets from the Handbook, which is sort of an homage to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, one of those type of books. Sort of humorous extracts from a fictional handbook that the characters use to help them navigate the world. I thought those were well done. I thought those were somewhat funny. The humor in the book didn't really work for me for the most part, but the humor in those sections was a little bit better. There were chapters like, why can't I have a dimension full of sentient bananas? And things like that. Those are somewhat humorous and enjoyable. But the rest of it, I don't know, it just felt kind of lightweight. The phrase that kept running through my head as I was reading it was empty calories. Because I think books like this I just don't get any kind of lasting thing out of them. They might be somewhat entertaining to read in the moment, but then afterwards I just feel like I didn't get anything out of it. Whereas when I read a great novel, when I read a novel that really impresses me, I really feel like I carry something with me. And it gave me some insight into the characters, or into human nature, or into philosophy, or into history, or into something that I can then carry with me and have it change me in some way. This just feels like pure entertainment, and there's really nothing deeper than that, and that's fine, I guess, but to me, it's unsatisfying. To me, it doesn't give me what I'm looking for in a book. So I'm 0 for 2 with Sanderson's books, and I've read some reviews of this, and it seems like I'm sort of in the majority here, or maybe not the majority, but a large number of people agree with me that this is not one of Sanderson's better books. A lot of people said it's his worst book ever. It seems like it's not that popular among his fan base, and it doesn't exhibit the traits that people like in his writing. But I've read 2 of his books now, and neither one of them has really grabbed me and really made me want to read more, which is a shame because, as I said, I like him as a person. So I'd like to read more of his stuff, but I've been kind of burned twice, and so I don't know if I should continue on. So how many chances do you give someone to keep reading their work before you decide they're not for you and move on to another author? I don't know. Maybe that's a question for you all to answer in the comments. You can let me know what you thought of this book in particular and what you think of Brandon Sanderson's work in general. I know it's sort of heresy to go against Sanderson, and so I feel bad doing it, but I call him like I see him, right? So if you like his books and you think I should continue reading them, make suggestions in the comments down below, and maybe I will and maybe I won't, but I didn't like this one and I was disappointed in it. And that's my review of Brandon Sanderson's The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you at the Artomatic Fair in Washington, D.C. this Sunday and the following Friday. That would be awesome. And if you enjoyed this review, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, leave me comments down below, and check back next week for yet another book review, because I like to keep them coming once a week, every week, if I possibly can. That's all I have to say for today. Thanks so much for watching. I've been your host, Logan Albright, and I will catch you next time.